My name is Ted Osborne. I live at 120 East 4th Street in New York, and I have lived in this building for 25 years approximately. Moved in 1989. It was a quiet, happy, neighborly building. A lot of long-term tenants were living there and continued to live there throughout the 90s and the early part of this last decade, I guess. In about 2011, I guess, we realized that the building had been sold. We got short notice that the building had been sold, and nobody really thought much about it. It had been sold several times during our tenure, but this was something new and different. It was sold to a landlord named Ben Shaul, who, as it turned out, was part of a huge predatory equity corporation that was buying up dozens of buildings in the East Village. I think we logged it in at 80 plus at one point. So within weeks there were people packing. It just sort of happened very suddenly. People were moving out in droves, and I would imagine that over half of the tenants were gone before some of us even realized what was happening. For me, I guess I realized we were in some serious trouble when, on a daily basis, an army of construction workers arrived at approximately 7:30 to 7:45 every morning. They would burst through the front door behind me and just fan out into the building. Disruptive, noisy, and what they were doing was demolishing the apartments that they had chased all of the tenants out of. So there were power tools, sledgehammers, shouting, noise. It was unlivable. Without a doubt unlivable. I couldn't be home. And we were all in the dark about what was happening, really. We started talking to one another and saying, what's going on? But this was all news to us, that this kind of thing was happening, not just in our building. Their goal, as we later discovered, and I was really naive about this, They were purposely trying to get rid of all of the rent-stabilized tenants, voluntarily or involuntarily. I mean, they were harassing us until we couldn't stand it another minute, another day. So I did find a flyer under my door one morning from Cooper Square Committee, and Brandon's name was on it. So I walked down the street and had a conversation with him, and he sort of informed me that this was going to continue, and by that time I'd also spoken to some neighbors, so we started to organize. So we sort of formed a group and started communicating a lot, and we started a tenants association. It was the first one our building had had. So the timeline's now stretched on for approximately a year. We're all exhausted. This is a daily siege we're undergoing, and we're, of course, bonding, as people in battle generally do. But one Saturday morning, and this was a turning point for us, 7:45, right outside my bedroom window, I'm on a courtyard, I heard a noise so loud that the panes of glass in my windows were rattling. The walls were shaking. I thought it was a jackhammer. I later discovered that it was something called a power washer. But there were two lone workmen on a Saturday morning just blasting away at the courtyard stones, clearly in an effort to harass. Before I could even get out of bed, I heard my upstairs neighbors tromping down the stairs. I surged out of my bedroom. We all sort of converged on the courtyard. It was the last straw. We'd been pushed to the breaking point. We asked them to stop, politely, and they didn't. And so we told them to get their boss on the phone, that we were going to form a circle around them so that they couldn't move until they got somebody on the phone. They did. My upstairs neighbor took the phone and told whoever they had called that what they were doing was illegal, that they weren't to work on weekends, that we were aware of our rights, and that they needed to stop or we would get the police and have them removed from the building as trespassers. which we did. We eventually had to do that. So we went to the precinct. My upstairs neighbor Alan came back with 2 police officers. They asked the workers to leave the building, and Alan posted himself in the street because they tried to come back 2 or 3 times. And he stood in front of the door and blocked their way. So that was the first of many weekends where we formed, we called it the EMCC, which was the Early Morning Coffee Club. And we would take 2 or 3 volunteers every Friday, and those 2 or 3 would pour coffee at 7 a.m. and go out and sit on the stoop until the construction workers came, and we would form a human chain in front of the door. I've spent my life really keeping a low profile, so activism was not anything I was drawn to, honestly. I mean, it was sort of lived by example. That was my form of activism, but I never expected to get political about this. But these people that invaded our homes are despicable, basically. There was nothing they wouldn't do to get a hold of another unit.